Welcome to ecosystem number 3. It's the 24th of September 2020, and I have Adam and Mike from RedGrid with me today. Hey, Adam and Mike.
Hey, how you doing, David?
Good, thank you. So, guys, I'd love you guys to just introduce yourselves really quickly and tell us just give us a brief snapshot of RedGrid.
Yeah, sure. MG, do you want to jump in?
Sure. So apparently I'm now the principal architect. We changed roles. What's really interesting is I actually have been doing some architecture recently. And as we'll explain that we've kind of got these two directions and they're actually coming together, which is really cool. So that helps. Adam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm co-founder and CEO of RedGrid. So I guess we're trying to get a definition of RedGrid. We've been trying for 2 years to get a definition of RedGrid. I think we're getting there, which, as Mike said, things are kind of coming together, which is really cool. But essentially what we're doing is building a system, an ecosystem of energy interactions between different devices and agents in a system that will all be working together ultimately to provide clean energy cheaply and reliably to as many people as possible by enabling those people who are producing clean energy from solar or wind to enable that to get to the right people at the right point in time. And for people who are in their houses or for institutions or companies who are running larger buildings, they're able to then balance out how they use electricity or how they consume it or how they produce it at different points in time through what we call the Internet of Energy. So it's basically a decentralized version that enables us, following the principles of the Internet, to then have the ability for everyone to participate in what a new clean energy economy looks like. And so that's our ambition, and we're building on Holochain, which is pretty fun.
I should also mention that I didn't have a beard before our winter and lockdown. We're in quite a big lockdown. I didn't know it was going to be white, and I'm trying to compete with Eric Harris Braun. So it's actually, I might have to shave it off because we're heading into spring.
Great, thanks, Mike.
That's it. Yeah.
Thanks for the intro, Adam. I think I remember when I first chatted to you guys saying, can you explain what you're doing a little bit more simply? So it's nice to have it so succinct. So
we're getting there. Nice. Thanks, David. It's like a process, right? We're dealing with this energy thing is so it's so old and it's so entrenched and difficult, but at the same time there's so much going on all around the world, and it has been for a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years, that is really exciting. But it's getting down to the nuts and bolts of what actually has to happen in the context of climate change and in the context of sustainable energy for everyone, and in the context of COVID. I mean, we're here, I've got this crazy COVID hair because we've been locked down for so long in Melbourne that it's like, and everyone's energy bills have gone up because everyone's at home. It's crazy. So there's lots going on here, but we're trying to get down to that nuts and bolts bit, which is the organization of energy information to enable those things, really good things to happen for people.
Super. Yep. I feel much more brotherhood, sisterhood these days with other people's crazy hair. I don't feel so alone.
Looking pretty good.
The guy who freaked me out was David Meister, if you're listening, because he left Melbourne and he was super clean shaved, and then he looked like Hunter S. Thompson when we saw him. Anyway.
All right, so Super, just tell us a little bit about what you believe about the world that makes what you're doing so important.
Do you want me to go first, MG?
You want me to go first? I don't know.
Come on, you jump in from your side on the Holochain. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're clearly going through a lot of change, and it's all getting pretty scary, terrifying. Like the world's getting really wobbly, but it always has been. It's just that now it's reaching its pressure points, and I guess RedGrid is definitely a mission-based company, as in we can see how we can actually make a difference. And we found Holochain, as you know, now it's 18 months ago. Time changes in lockdown, but we found a group of people, like you said, a brotherhood, a sisterhood of people with sort of common beliefs that we can make this better. And I found this phrase which I love, which is called solar punk, which is actually a genre of science fiction, but it's, instead of cyberpunk and all these sort of Blade Runner down, everything's raining, it's like the future, but it's better. And as you know, it's like an optimistic view of the world. And so that's where we want to take it. We want to go that way.
Yeah, totally. I think that sort of hits the nail on the head. There's so much. So I spent like nearly 20 years in climate change and doing climate change innovation and working at different levels. And the trouble is, you get so many downers about what's going on because it's really bad, right? We got this. I mean, COVID is really challenging for everyone. It's very acutely challenging right now. But the big wave that's coming is the climate wave that's going to come after this, you know, and that's the real disruptor that's going to come down the line. And it is really scary. And when you really look at the science, it's very scary to see where we're going. But at the same time, as MG said, there's this. I firmly believe that the people are good. People are good. They want to help each other out. They want to be part of something that is more purposeful than just dollars in the bank. Dollars in the bank are important, but it's more than that. And I think we're at this. I believe firmly that we're at the top of a ridge in a mountain range, and right behind us is death and destruction of Mordor, and right in front of us is you know, the rest of Middle Earth. It's like we're on this kind of precipice, and back behind us is the fossil fuel kind of driven past that is, you know, that's great. We had that for 150 years. It got us to where we are today. No problem at all, but we cannot continue that way. And I feel that we've actually come up this side of the mountain. I think we're actually on the top, and we're sort of in within the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, we're in this position where we're either going to fall backwards or we're going to go over into the new world. And I think that is, I mean, I don't see any way we're going to fall backwards, because it's the economics don't stack up, but more bigger than that, the philosophy doesn't stack up. People don't want to see us back in that world. And so I think what I believe, and I think as RedGrid as an entity, and we built this as a culture, is that we kind of said, okay, we're in the fight, like we're in it. And it's sort of like, it feels like we have no choice. There is no plan B, and there's certainly no plan B for RedGrid. It's like, we're going to make this work. And that's really weighs on your shoulders, but it also it's a reason to do it. It makes so much sense. And I think that's where we've come to as a group. We've kind of bringing people together to be part of this. Sometimes it feels like we're kind of like a ramshackle group of sort of like people who are, you know, they're just on this quest, who are just trying to get it done. And we're all a bit different. We've all different kind of ways of expressing ourselves and doing work and expertise. But actually, when it comes down to it, there's a fundamentally core belief that we will make this work. Not just RedGrid, but the whole thing, the whole clean energy thing, the whole justice and equity component that's associated with it. And because if we don't make that work, we're going to be in a world that's just uninhabitable for so many reasons. I think we have to do it. So it's just as you said, MG. We see a bright future. I think not without its pain, but we have to get there.
I think there's sort of a death rattle. I think there's like, you know, the old world is trying to maintain, and it's not going to happen. They're going to lose, and there's a birth occurring. I'm originally from Canada, and I'm from the oil part of Canada. And I read this book. It's about 900 pages. It's called The Prize. It's Pulitzer Prize winning. And it's the history of oil, which is the history of the 20th century. It's amazing, the correlation. Like, you know, Hitler and Churchill actually were heading for oil. Like, everything was oil. And we're now in the 21st century, and, you know, we're getting quite a bit into it. Russia still has its oil, but it's all the gasp. And there's this new birth happening with renewables that it's now clear, and in fact, international investors are turning their backs on fossil fuels. That's a clear sign that, you know, it's happening every day. JP Morgan today announced in I think it was London actually, that they've changed. So yeah, it's happening.
Or in General Electric, like 2 days ago, said then they are divesting from doing any more coal-fired power plants. Their General Electric does the most coal-fired power plants in the world, and they said we're not doing any more. So that's happening there. But there's also one of the challenges of renewables is that, and we've seen this, is that right now, you know, it's the clean energy is going to the people with more money, and it's going to, you know, those investment opportunities are obviously, you know, capital is stepping in to take those investment opportunities up. And one of the challenges that we think we've got to try and solve is creating there's something we often talk about is we can't have just a transition. We have to have a just transition to a clean energy future. Because if we don't have that, then we're going to end up in the same position with, you know, the 1%, but in the clean energy 1%. So I think there's something, and there's some contradictions in there, of course. Like, we're a company, we're a for-profit company. Yeah, we want to make profit. We want to do that and be part of those markets, but we want to see it as a community-driven enterprise and an ecosystem-driven enterprise. And the cool thing is, when we get to this a bit later on, we're seeing and hearing from the community is in homeowners and people in business and people who want to do this, make this change, that they kind of feel the same way. It's a cool thing we're starting to see. Yeah, so we can dive into that a bit later.
Super, thank you. Before we dive into a little bit more on what you're building, is that a company branded water bottle?
Yeah, where do I get one of those?
I would like to say it's a company branded water bottle. It's just a water bottle with one of our stickers on it, but it is company branded. So, behind MG, there's like stickers there. There's
So
USB port has a sticker on it. Like,
guys, look at all the product placement.
So, exactly. I was going to say, it's like Star Trek.
It is. I didn't realize we'd commercialize the Holochain ecosystem to this
There's
extent.
It's basically what happens when you order a shed ton of stickers and forget that you don't have anywhere to put them, and then you've just got boxes of stickers everywhere and beer mats. There's a beer mat up there somewhere, I think, MG as well, isn't there?
There we go.
The whole sticker.
You're just going to be scanning your screens for just the RedGrid logo popping up in random places.
That's it. RedGrid underpants are coming in 2021.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. With that wonderful piece of product placement there. Just jumping into one question, just going a little bit deeper into the beliefs, because as you talk about like being on this precipice, I guess living on that precipice is also a little bit stressful. So yeah, you Adam, I think you talked a little bit about motivations, and that it's not just financial capital, it's not just money that's important, but I'm sure every now and then either you're like your wife or like someone you're thinking, oh, okay, you know what, like, wouldn't it be a bit easier to just like let the world work out whether it's going to go up or down and just be part of everyone who's looking and observing, rather than be part, like, rather than be the guys who are really trying to support the world to move down that other direction into the promised land. So like, what is it about yourself? Like, what do you either believe that's so important inside you that motivates you and keeps you going?
Yeah, it would be a lot easier, to be honest, to just sort of go and sit in an organization and just like kind of ride the wave as it goes through. What is it in me? So I was an academic or in academic institutions doing a lot of research for a long time. And I always had something on the side. I always had a business on the side, or I was starting a business, or I was consulting, or there was something happening. And it was always in sustainability and doing that kind of stuff. Because I just never fully trusted myself to do research that was good enough, that was really going to change the world, to be honest. And I thought, that's cool. It was good enough, but it wasn't great. And so I think it really struck me when I met Simon, I met Alex and Mike and the rest of the team, that there's the way we can do this really is through business, but I don't think it's through, a part of it can be through established businesses. We got to challenge the established businesses with a new model of doing something. And so for me, it's always been part of my psyche to want to do something more that's actually real and tangible. And so this is about, getting in a startup is about as real and tangible as you can get, because like there's no time for spinning on chairs or just having a bit of a chin wag every now and then. Like it is pretty full on, and the money is really important. I really believe that money is very important in this whole thing, because we have to have enough capital and liquidity around the world to make this stuff really stick, and because people need to eat, and we're not going to go back to a society where everyone makes their own food, or at least if we do go back there, we should be doing it consciously, and I don't think we'll be doing that. So I think money is absolutely important. When you're a startup, like we're a small startup, we raised a seed fund last year, like a small seed fund, and we're well into that right now, and we are in we've spent the money on, we're spending the money on developing the technology, on building customers, and creating, you know, a real business. And we're in that kind of phase now where we're kind of, okay, we've got some good prototype technology, we're running this, it's working. We've got some cool stories that Mike will dive into when we talk about one of our customers right now. And it's really good stuff. But the difficult thing is, I mean, actually, to be absolutely frank, is that we're a small company we feel like a small fish in a massive pond. And there are some big sharks out there. And the cool thing is that we have like iridescent fins and we look super cool and we are nimble and fast. And we've got this pretty hefty fish called Holochain with us, who's a good big brother that's helping us out. And that makes a big difference. But it is pretty scary when we're looking at runway and I sit there with our COO, we go through the numbers and we're like, okay, there's our runway. Like, where does the runway cross that critical line at the bottom? And that's a real business. And I think from a personal point of view, that's really exciting to be fighting every day to do that. It's also it can be really stressful and it can be really challenging because you end up really taking it on quite personally as well as professionally. And also this is like, as you saw the branded stuff everywhere, we are RedGrid, like, and RedGrid is us, and that's a big challenge. But I would not swap it at all. No way. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, from my point of view, this isn't my first rodeo, but it is the one that feels pretty real. And I think, yeah, we're going to succeed. I have succeeded. Like, I used to live in Perth in Western Australia, and that company still exists. Hi guys. But we did it by bootstrapping. So we were a product development, electronic products, and we did sports electronics. Got one up there, I can show you later. But it was really cool, a lot of fun. But it was just 6 engineers, and so we didn't have the right mix. We just had all these guys who were kind of socially challenged that worked on stuff. But it was, and they're still going. And like, I sold out, and now I'm in Melbourne on the other side of Australia. But when I met, so I've known Simon, our CTO, for the longest of the group, and we worked on blockchain stuff. And I actually wanted to see Simon succeed. Like, that was my goal, was to, because he's such a nice guy. And then I met Adam and Alex, and I thought, holy crap, all these guys are good. This is all good. And then we met Phil Beadle, who's an amazing character. But you know, there's strength there, and then the whole community, and it just keeps going. Like, we just keep meeting really good people, and I'm doing it for them. That's really, and by extrapolation, you know, the world, because it's the good people we want to see, you know, succeed. Yeah,
that's really true. I think that's a really good point. Like, the nice thing about this is I don't know what's happened, but somehow, like, there's all these people that have been really nice people who are really effective. They've all kind of like gravitated, and we just stumble across people just organically, and it's just sort of started to happen. And everyone who comes in brings in like a new skill and a new kind of perspective, but it's super nice and really respectful and really fun, and has their own, like, we're just not working. We don't have to work with people who are unreasonable and nasty and not seeing it that way. And that's been a massive, and people who are like downers, you know, like, we just don't have to work with them. It's just really good, you know. You work in big institutions, you get a whole bunch of people who are like, just want to moan about the institution the whole time. And we don't have that, which is awesome.
Super, thank you guys. All right, so let's dive into what you're building. Show where you're at with the product, maybe show some visuals or images or some code or whatever you want to. But I understand from that chat that there's a couple of different directions, so we can just free form and you guys just go in whatever way you want with the how to describe what you're building and where it's at. And but yeah, I'd love to see some visuals. I've enabled sharing screen, so you can show stuff on the screen, and just really bring what you're doing to life for people.
Let me show you this one then. So this is, there's a bit of diagrams here, but I'll show you this one. Is that big enough for you? Of course, in Zoom, as soon as you do this, I can't.
It's looking pretty good, Mike.
Yep. Okay, cool. So what is this thing? Well, if you can read that. So this thing called 𝗔𝗯𝗏, which is distributed energy resources. So the new world will be completely distributed. And I got this from I'm not sure exactly where I got this from, but it's actually pretty good because it shows smart houses. So along with energy, there's intelligence appearing everywhere. And if you talk to the big guys like IBM and stuff, they talk about edge computing, and it's all kind of that sort of thing. Everything's moving to the edge. So we've got smart houses, we've got wind power plants. We won't talk about thermals. We've got electric vehicles, which are both consumers and stores. So the whole thing of batteries is a pretty interesting idea. And then there's commercials, which includes, so I'll talk about these shortly, and then solar power plants. So again, there's the shift occurring, and in our state of Victoria in Australia, if you drive west, so to the east were all the old coal-powered plants, which are one by one getting decommissioned. If you drive to the west towards South Australia, there's all this sort of thing happening. There's just heaps of solar farms and wind farms that are popping up.
All right.
And then there's the transmission. So we can actually play in each one of these. But the ones we've chosen first are Monash University, which I can talk about a bit. Basically, it's this great big playground of renewable energies. And there was two terms that, Adam, we're supposed to say. One is net zero 2030. So Monash in late 2018, I think it was, won a UN award for their vision of 2030 net zero. And the idea is to take the whole campus and convert it. So in this world, you've heard maybe of nanogrids, microgrids, and it's just size. One building tends to be a nanogrid, and that's all these smart devices communicating to make this all happen. And then as you go outwards, there's campuses, and Monash is the biggest university in Australia and has a number of campuses, and they're also related to other universities. So they have big plans to become another energy provider and sell to even suburbs. So that's on this side. We'll talk about that a bit later. Then on this side,
just to confirm that they're saying net zero emissions. So it's net zero carbon emissions by 2030. So the rest of the world is like, Paris Agreement is driving, emissions down. The general consensus is we've got to hit net zero by 2050. That was consensus maybe 5 years ago. The real goal to actually really deal with climate change is net zero by 2030. That's to really hit it. So they're trying to model this, basically a city of 60,000 people to get that to net zero.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like a smart city where the campus itself has people living on it. There's shops, and then there's all these cool things like wind tunnels and all sorts of just the whole variety of things that consume and produce energy. They have a wind farm as well. On the left side is, I know it's obscured by that little dot, but it says XCD Mirvac. So as part of last year, was it last year? I can't keep track, but we had a crowdfund where we raised some early money. And then on the heels of that was, I think it's the largest property developer in Australia's company called Mirvac. And we're now doing a project with them. Before we got there, we created a self-funded project called XCD, which stood X is 10, C is 100 in Roman numerals, and D is 500. And we've just surpassed C, but it's now merging into the same project, which is Mirvac. And that's to give people we've never met. So we've now got our app and our devices out there, which I can show you as well. I've got some devices here. And we're trying to save them energy. And one of the ways we do that, so for instance, in Australia in the summertime, it gets hot. We have air conditioning, winter heaters, especially in northern climates. I like to use the term steel cycles. So we, in the middle of the night, we can turn things off and it won't affect your comfort level. You can even do it during the day. And preliminary tests have shown that we can save anywhere from 17 to 70% on your energy just by doing this. What's interesting also is that Monash is doing tests, except they have a whole army of behavioral scientists for them. And they're looking at comfort levels versus the same concept of not using energy, sort of a negative idea. And they're treating people as batteries. So when you think about it, your comfort level is like a storage of energy. Like if you're still happy, then that's energy not used. So interesting way to look at it.
We should be clear, not treating people as batteries as in like the Matrix sense, but treating them as like their behavior, treating their behavior as a battery, in terms of like, someone deciding not to do something, or someone, happily allowing some change in the energy use in their apartment or in their department, in their faculty, that then supports the whole of that special grid.
So when we did the early tests, our CTO Simon, he was the one he was the guinea pig first, and especially his wife, and it was driving her crazy the way he was turning the air conditioner on and off. But yeah, we got there. So I can show you quickly while I'm here, I guess.
As in,
well, maybe
she's gone crazy.
No, she hasn't gone crazy.
Oh, you did.
Well, one of the things that happened was the air conditioner had a beep. So it was the beep that was driving her nuts. So part of the left side of our equation are these things called smart plugs. So that's just a plug. And when you hear the word smart in smart houses, it usually means connected, as in a Wi-Fi. This is a company called 𝗔𝗶𝗱𝗚. They make light bulbs in Australia, and they're now into this 𝗔𝗯cie is their market. And there's another one called 𝗥𝗲𝗱𝗚. So that's can't really see it, but there's 𝗥𝗲𝗱𝗚. And what's cool about this one, which 𝗔𝗶𝗱𝗚 is going to get there soon, is it's got monitoring. So that closes the feedback loop. So now we can use this to really understand what's happening. And actually, we should pull up the graphs that Simon did today. So we employ a couple of data scientists, because we're getting a lot of data, like millions of lines of things from all these houses. And we're starting to visualize in terms of graphs and things. So that's pretty exciting, actually. So when you look at RedGrid, what we do, like we're into the energy, but there's also the data aspect as well. And with Holochain, the agent-based privacy is really cool. And I remember last year when we were talking to David Meister and others about this, and this might be the one thing that actually really complies with GDPR, which is the privacy laws in Europe that now exist.
Actually, it's really important that Monash stuff as well that Mike's mentioning is that so there's two things. You got this net zero initiative for 2030, but then there's the Monash e-research center, which is kind of stacking the entire microgrid together, and they've got different technology layers that are going in there, and they're dealing with slow flow batteries, lithium batteries, EV charging, as Mike said, like the off-campus wind farms, the massive building management systems, and there's all this stuff happening to create a transactive energy market where they can all bid with each other. And it might be cool, MG, if you want to like talk a bit about like the integration of what we've done there at the transactive energy market. But I think the really cool thing is that, so this is funded by ARENA, which is the government here, this specific project, but it's starting to really create this smart city that could be replicable in other places. Just, this is the kind of first of a kind. But the cool thing is that they chose us to come in and do this with them because we were pushing a fully decentralized system, and that's what they're really excited about. So it is different to everything else that's out there. There's lots of different microgrids doing different stuff, but there's nothing that's running on trying to get to that fully decentralized level, because we're using Holochain. So, and maybe we want to talk about that communications bit as well, MG, from that meeting we had today. It was really, really cool. So anyway, talk about the stack.
Yeah, so we had a meeting today, and of course, whenever we're in meetings, we always have a side channel, and it was just wow, because they just told us some things, which I guess we're allowed to talk about, Adam.
Well, I think
do you have any guidance from that?
Yeah. So look, so Monash University, like they're kind of like the team who's doing this is kind of like a startup as well. They're pushing frontiers, and they're pushing things as fast as they can as well. Like, and so they're working with us, and we're pulling this together. The cool thing that they've got here, I mean, we were talking about this today, is that maybe we can see now with the RSM that we can get fast enough to have the ledger happening to enable us to actually enable the RedGrid and Monash co-created system to start to really understand how a dynamic trading mechanism is going to happen at a decentralized level. So we've got the ledger decentralized, But what we're talking about now is, and the sort of phrase came out today is like, this wasn't possible. We couldn't even conceive of this a year ago with blockchain, because blockchain won't do it. Blockchain isn't decentralized to the point that we need it to be. And even a month ago, it was pretty tricky. But with the RSM, now there's the opportunity for this to actually work. It's got so much faster, and we might want to show the graph of the speed, but actually just, you got some stats, haven't you, MG, about how fast it's got. But the other cool thing is we might be able to put the actual node to node or agent to agent communications may be able to be decentralized now as well, which fundamentally rewrites and reworks how an energy-based system with different agents can talk to each other, because you start to get a far more resilient system that's really pushing to the edge. And it's a spectrum of things that are on the edge, and that's really cool. Things are on the edge, and that's really where the future is going. But this, what we talked about today, is there's a deployment architecture now that enables it to be part of the current system in the cloud. So we can have edge-based decentralized energy stuff working with Holochain, and simultaneously working with the legacy systems of the cloud that people have right now. And that's, for me, that was fan. Like, MG was right. Like, we're just like, whoa, this is good, because suddenly we're in, just like being on the top of the precipice. Like, we're on the top of the cliff. We've got the cloud systems. That's good. That's the old world, but it'll be in the new world as well. It's not the same as fossil fuels, but we need to take it with us in a decentralized sense as well. And that we can now do it. We've done it. We can show how to do it.
So just a bit of background as to what our role was and what may be changing as of today in that project was that there's a company called Indra, which is out of Madrid, and they were the main partner with Monash for IoT devices. When you think of IoT, I tend to think about these plugs, which are really small in terms of code. Like this one has 30K, I think, 30 kilobytes for code. But their thing's got 30 gig, so they're big. They're not big physically, but yeah, there's a lot of grunt. And as Monash fleshes out those nanogrids and microgrids, there's going to be all sorts of permutations, like things hanging off 5G, 4G, and with different characteristics. And they're all trying to be part of this market. So anyway, our part was to be, everything's containerized in this architecture that Adam mentioned, this deployment architecture. And so we're one Docker container of 4 inside the Indra physical node. With COVID, everything's simulated at this point, and so everything is virtual at this point. But the original plan was, by this time, was that we'd start using actual hardware. It exists, it's just we can't get to the campus to use it. So inside one of these nodes are 4 main components. One is us, and us I mean a ledger. So think of, as you know, Holochain is ledgers plural. It's like everyone has their own. So just think of a node as the ledger. Then there's this transactive energy market agent and transactive energy market, and then there's power qualifying. So that's like, making sure it's not dirty power. So the actual goal is that everything's an agent and everything can be a market, and it's all dynamic. So it's pretty wild. So there's a lot of really interesting aspects to this story. One is that we got to about July and we said, let's do a demo, or they wanted a demo. And it became clear that Holochain version 51 was just not going to cut it, because being academia, they didn't actually put any limits. They said, let's just crank this up and see how it'll go. And it actually didn't do all that well. So like the performance was, well, first of all, what was interesting was with that system, you got all the Rust crates, you got the entire Nixos operating system, and you got a whole bunch of Holochain debug stuff. So we rock up to this IoT thing, and it was 6 gigabytes, which is a bit embarrassing if it was supposed to be, an IoT product. We got it down to about 1 gig, which is still a lot. Anyway, so it was big, and it was actually kind of slow. We were getting these bottlenecks where it was like minutes to commit to the ledger, and the whole idea was, we're supposed to be the source of truth at some point. So they're trying to crank it up. It just wasn't working. So we talked to Art Brock, and we said, what are we going to do? And he goes, well, we've been working on RSM. So it was kind of, I'll use the term Hail Mary. It was like this, it wasn't cutting it. We needed to move on. So, okay, we'll take a leap of faith. And, when Art says something, we believe him. But the other aspect that's really cool is that the Holochain community came to our rescue. So, and anyone who's in Holochain knows 𝗔𝗯cie 𝗥𝗲𝗱𝗚 in Barcelona. So he was our first recruit. We've now got Connor Turland, who's just left Toronto just before COVID, and he's now living in near Lake Huron. We talked to Tatsuda in Tokyo, and of course Eduardo in London, who's given us some guys in Venezuela. We had a national blackout today, but it's really cool. Like, so now we in Monash, we were working around the clock. And it's anyone who's ever worked in this, I have done this before, but it's really cool. You specify what you want, you go to sleep, and then the elves make the shoes. And you wake up in the morning and you've got progress. It's really good. So Guillaume was the one who got us through sort of July and into August, and that was with the old system. And then it became clear we need to make the shift. So we got to RSM. It's still, at the top, it's getting better all the time, but it was a bit rough. We've also got Tom Gowan, who lives in Melbourne, who's one of the core developers. So all these people were coming to us, as Adam said, these good people were helping us. And it was actually kind of blowing me away, but it was clear that Monash was quietly impressed that the progress, we went from rather dismal results to where we got to now. And maybe now's the time to show you this graph, which I'll try and talk you through.
And I think the key thing is that they're trying something really new. Like, they've really got ambitious goals, and that's really cool for us to be working with a team that's really wants to push the envelope, because it's so easy not to do that. So yeah, it's really cool.
So you probably can't read this, but what we did is we went through what we call the remediation sprint, where we said, okay, we need to prove that this RSM can do it. And of course, as of the time of this recording, multi-conductor doesn't exist. So we needed to get rid of SIM2H. They didn't like that because they recognize it as a centralized system. So they're being completely purist about it. And we said, fine, okay, we'll have to find a way. So at the moment, it's talking through relayers, so Express, RPC, but ultimately in a couple of weeks, that'll move down into the Holochain proper. But what you're seeing now is, you probably can't read this, but one of the criteria was it had to sort of be stable for a minute. So this is actually over 2.5 minutes. The RAM is pretty good. The main thing was the CPU was maxing out. Now it's like we're hammering it. We're doing like 87 transactions per second, and it's fine. It's 40. Well, yeah, you can see here it's actually around 22% usage, bits per second. So that's 87. And we kind of set the criteria because it was unclear what we could do, and so to get out of this remediation sprint, we had to pass these tests, and we've done that now. We have a weekly meeting with Monash, and so they were impressed. Okay, I probably shouldn't have done it that way. That was a bit blunt. Anyway, I just closed it. And now they're saying, yeah, okay, this is impressive. I got my Holoport there, and while we're on the call, Rob went and looked it up. They're into it. It's been quite a journey, and they've been really putting us through the mill, and we came out at the other end. It was a success.
And there's a bit more to go as well, which is really cool. Like it's definitely one of those projects which is there is no endpoint on it apart from 2030 and net zero. And so there's a really good way for us to sort of, this is the first time it's happened. That's why, these are numbers that we have right now, but those numbers will get better as we go through, which is really cool.
So what they're proposing now is that, because they've got this sort of parallel bus that they're using for those other bits I was talking about, they're thinking of using Holochain now as the message bus as well. So it becomes the core, it becomes the center of a decentralized node. Which is really cool. So looking forward, okay, Adam's just going to drop off. Then maybe.
So we probably should. Do you want to jump into the other stuff on the kind of residential side as well?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover there, MG?
Yeah, let me think about that. Yeah, I guess like today was just amazing. Like we have days in RedGrid being a startup where you just have amazing days. And the other thing is that Monash has agreed to do, they actually suggested being joint marketing. So that's what these weekly meetings are going to start to be. So you'll start to actually see some releases from us and them. And of course, they have a much bigger voice than we do. So that's really exciting. This is kind of
so keep an eye out for that over the next like 2 or 3 months, I guess, as things kind of ramp up. for those kind of joint releases. And we'll have quite a bit more. Like, I mean, it's getting better every day in terms of the tech as well. Like, these are just kind of a point in time numbers. And I think the cool thing about it is that it's an innovation project. We knew from the start, we all agreed this is an innovation project. We have no idea if this is really going to work. And that was the cool thing about sort of getting to this point now. And it's taken ups and downs as every project, but it gets to this point now. Okay, cool. We think this can work, and we think we might be able to get actually this to happen. So that's really good. I think the other part.
I should put. Sorry, Adam. I was just going to say I should point out that what attracted me way back to Holochain was the support, not so much the tech. And it's just in the last month this is proven out where 𝗔𝗯𝗶𝗱 and Connor have been helping us. They've done trade-offs at their end of their day and started their day. And we can see in Discord and GitHub the actual changes, discussions with guys like David Meister and Tom Gowan, and then to the point where 𝗔𝗯𝗶𝗱 actually found things and updated the core. Like, it's really pretty impressive. And Monash recognized that. So yeah,
and that was cool, because then you're building together. You know, that was really cool. And it's also like, I don't know, made it for us as a company as well, like as a small company who's had lots of, good support from Art and Eric Hausbraun from the beginning, and obviously all the people MG's mentioned, is that it's still like we're still doing it. Like, we're still like the company was as RedGrid, like, yeah, we said we want to work with Holochain and we want to work with Holochain, and it's still there. It's absolutely fundamental to what we're doing. And that's, when we're getting someone else that we're working with, from another organization saying, yeah, this is cool, we're really excited about what we're seeing here, it makes us feel good. It makes us feel good about the community. It makes us feel good about the whole mission, but also that there are other people out there who are not building on Holochain, but believe in what we're doing, as in the Holochain RedGrid kind of combination. And that's very cool. So yeah, it's exciting. And it's just, that's one example. And I think that's the thing, as a small company, try and find those key examples to try and talk about and to work with as one example of where we've gone. I guess maybe the other one, and that's on one side. So we kind of have what's happening for us is we've got this sort of layer of kind of large enterprises like Monash. You've got all these different big, multi-billion-dollar company, essentially, as a large university. And then we've got kind of like that on the kind of enterprise, commercial, industrial sort of sense. And then we've got this kind of everyone who's out there in residences and sort of neighborhoods and the kind of housing of kind of normal people, like people who are in houses every day, residential market. That's kind of the other angle that we're coming at. So kind of bottom up from these kind of big enterprises who've got lots of people involved, and then we're kind of going out to the very edge and sort of saying, okay, who wants to be part of this at a household level who isn't part of a big other corporation? And so I figure it would be cool to talk a bit about the Mervac work, because so we got they are a really big company, but they're a property developer. So they develop properties and then they sell those properties to people, and they also do some build to rent. And they're kind of known for, first of all, taking a really good sustainability line. So they, the same as Monash, have the goal for net zero carbon emissions by 2030. And so Monash net zero for 2030, Mervac net zero for 2030, RedGrid net zero for 2030. And it feels like we're kind of like becoming a club who says, if you're not going net zero for 2030, then why are you not doing that? And that's really exciting for us as a mission-driven organization. So Mervac, so we're working with them. We basically went through with them a whole kind of process of, okay, where could the RedGrid technology be useful? How could we start to deploy it and test it with customers of Mervac, who, by the way, are like kind of like customers just because they bought one of their houses. They're not still selling them stuff, but they're still in touch with them because the customers really love what they bought. It's a cool dynamic. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, a lot of people, when they buy properties, they get super fed up with the person who built it because they built it badly. Whereas these customers are still in touch. And so, for example, we now have 20 different houses running RedGrid technology in Melbourne. It's a small number, 20, but it's 20 people who running the kind of the first wave of this as we're testing the technology and helping out. And the cool thing is that we went through Mervac and they've helped get us to these people. And basically what's happened is they've received some of the plugs that Mike showed earlier with connected into the RedGrid system. They kind of enlist them, those and the Mirabella plugs, and they kind of provision them, and then they basically start feeding us data in the back end. And now we're testing with those customers what are they interested in? Why do they want to be part of this? What are the things they want to see out of it? How do they want to be part of it in the future? And I think you just picked up an IR blaster as well, didn't you, MG? So
Hockey
yeah,
puck.
so there's the hockey puck, which can control. So I mean, a lot of people might not know around the world, but a lot of Australia runs on split system air conditioning, which is a kind of unit that sits up in your wall that blasts cold air, and then other ones and then you have an outsider compressor that kind of turns it into something else.
It's just a sensor, so we haven't really utilized that yet.
We got our split system in Alice Springs after having a swampy that would break down every summer.
Yeah,
and not really cool the house.
No, just like a ton of noise, and humidity, and
Actually, before interrupting your flow, the only image just came up and also there were just so many cockroaches. And so it was kind of this apocalyptic world where you'd have like 30 consecutive days of like 35 plus. You'd have the swampy just making all of this noise but not working. And then you just have cockroaches everywhere. They're just like unkillable.
Oh my God. It's like, how do I survive?
The red earth, the burning sun. And you're like, where am I? Anyway.
Absolutely. No, it's true. And it's kind of, and then you get the split system and you're like, oh, wow, look at my energy bill. I'm going to go back to the swampy, because they're so expensive. You're running this thing the whole time. But it's really interesting. People with you're running a split system and it's just sucking electricity to keep things cool. It's really they're intense amounts of electricity, and same for heating. And I mean, in Melbourne, we used to use ours as a heater, and it's so using electricity to do that through a split system. It costs a lot of electricity. So the thing that MG just showed is we can basically see. We can control the air conditioner, and so we can help people by pipping up and down a little bit, a couple of degrees. We save a whole bunch of energy. And the thing is, most people are not trying to be the fighter pilot at home, gaming the system by trying to change up the energy. And most people just don't know how much they're spending on it. It's just, you get the bill at the end of 3 months. So what we do is we help people understand how much energy they're using, but also automatically, once people were given us said, yeah, hey, RedGrid, go ahead, just pip up things or switch them off, just save me this much money, then we'll take control and we'll start doing that for them. So it's a bit like autopilot. And we're starting to run that here. So yeah, if you open, I'll do it on this one actually, because you can see it. So here's the little RedGrid at the bottom, and then you just click on this and you open it up, and here's the RedGrid app, and it takes you through to all the so you can see here, my son, Elio, his heater's on there. I've got the Dyson vacuum cleaner on it. Elio's cameras on it. And so then basically you can go in and you can see what is happening, how is the Dyson on, how much energy is it using? And this is the standard kind of app that enables us to see. So my Dyson's not charging or doing anything at the moment. So you can kind of see what's going on there, and you can list all these devices, including the different devices MG showed, including the kind of sensor one. But and then what happens at the back of that, it goes into another RedGrid Smarts app, which then people can, and we can supply a number of different smarts that enables people to have different ways to control their energy. For example, my heater, I don't want my heater to cost me more than $4 a day. So cap it at $4. And we might not just wait till $4 and cap it, but we're just okay, we'll intermittently turn things on and off. So you can get the whole day of heating, but you only spend $4. I mean, this is how expensive heating actually starts to get when you're starting running through electricity. So or it could be a percentage, or save me this. And so there's a whole bunch of different smarts that we basically built the back end that's, it is really the blocks that enable the ecosystem to come together. So we built this back end in the system at RedGrid that enables different API calls to come in, different integrations of hardware manufacturers that Mike showed, or heaters, or whatever it might be, to be part of the system, and then to be integrated together to enable that person at the end to have a sort of seamless experience of, I just want to save as much money as possible. So we have this kind of, we always talk about here, is building an ecosystem of energy. Fostering the true energy ecosystem is really what it is. It's just having the container to enable us to pull that together and make it super easy for someone at the end. So they don't have to go and pull these different APIs and things together themselves. No one's going to do that personally. Even large companies, it's a lot of work to go and do that. So the key thing we have here is all these signals coming in, and signals of things like the electricity price, the national market, signals of how much fossil fuels are in the grid at the moment. So are you burning when you're having your lights fly on at home? Are we burning more fossil fuels or less fossil fuels? Can we, and then we can automatically shift the load to when there's less fossil fuels. And so that's kind of a key bit, that we're actually tiny bits by tiny bits helping people move from using their energy when there's lots of coal or gas in it to energy when there's lots of clean solar or wind.
So there's sort of a couple aspects to it. Like, it's like a control loop. If you know control loop systems, there's inputs, which are called signals. And there's also like bureau meteorology, whether there's an event coming. And you can imagine, like, as in a sporting event, which may draw a lot of electricity. Then the middle is what we call smarts, which is like a rules engine. And then the output is, I used to call them device drivers. I don't know if it's in vogue in RedGrid anymore, but it's like if you're on a Windows system or you have a printer, you abstract that. So it doesn't matter what version of printer, whether it's, you know, whoever makes it, it's just you need to print a page. Well, I don't anymore. I don't have printers. But, so there's that level. And then there's this other level above. And now we're getting into sort of arts currency model, which is rewards and recognitions. So now we're providing incentives to kind of nudge the person. You know, if you do this, you'll get rewarded for encouraging the use of renewables. And so there's this whole other side of this two-sided market that we're exploring. And Adam, I don't know if you want to talk about that now. Or...
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's like, so we've been doing these some tests with our XCD users, as Mike talked about, and then our current initial kind of users as well, and sort of saying, okay, what do people want? And people want to save money for sure. Like, they want to save money. Like, please, can you reduce my bill? We've had this thing. So we've been in lockdown in Melbourne for a long time. We've gone through a pretty cold winter. There's been a massive amount of bill shock, to the point where people are not paying their bills. You're more likely to die of hypothermia in Sydney than you are in Sweden, because the prices of electricity people are not paying, and there's or they're switching off their electricity. Even more important, they're switching off their heaters. And so there's this thing happening, and COVID has really impacted that. Bills have gone up by about 40% for a lot of people, just because they're home a lot more. And yet the price in the wholesale market has dropped through the floor. So this is kind of, yet they're still being charged the same amount of money. So there's a whole like screwed up system here that shouldn't be happening. And when Mike's talking about this kind of two-sided market, is that there's actually, we're building in this system that enables people to benefit from taking good energy actions by then getting a point system that sits inherently within it, which is the currency, which then can be off-ramped because they've made a good decision for themselves and for the community at large. And it's kind of reputation-based points and action-based points. But the cool thing about that is, it's people want to save money 100%, but they also want to be part of something that's a bigger purpose. And that's the cool thing. Like, people are like, yeah, cool. Is it going to cost me anything to do this? Like, no, it's actually going to save you money. You know, like, do I have to do much for it? Like, not really. Just plug the things in, get them provisioned, and then, like, you know, choose which smarts you want, and then we'll take care of the rest. Like, okay, cool. And that's it. That's the conversation. And then it's kind of, we're getting this good feedback, really good feedback from that people are, they're really interested in being part of this. They're interested to help. Like, we've actually had text messages from people saying, hey, I'm interested in help. We actually said someone stick up the plugs and all the stuff we sent them on Instagram and say, I'm part of this RedGrid trial. It's amazing. We're loving it. Like, it's really cool. Like, people are interested. They want to be part of something. And so we're getting paid from our client, which is Mervac, but the people at the end are just getting these for free, and they're just jumping in. They just want to do it. And, you know, we're still working on business model, still working out lots of that stuff, as any startup is. But the thing is, we're starting to see that they're real people. They're not friends or family of ours. Like, we don't know who they are. So they're not giving us the false positives like, yeah, sure, Adam, that's a great idea. Like your mum does when you try and ask her whether she thinks a startup's a good idea or not. She's like, yes, that sounds amazing. I'd buy it. You're not going to buy it. But we don't know these people, and they're giving us great feedback. And I think that's one of the coolest validations we've had recently, is that there are more people who want to do it.
Should point out the XCD. So I mentioned 10, 100, 500. We actually have 100 devices out there with these randoms that we don't know. But we started with X, which was the friends and family. So we're on our way. And with Mervac, then, as Adam said, we're getting paid to do this, whereas we started the other one as self-funded. So.
And one of the things here is that I think it's really important, and I know Simon wants us to stress this, is that it is about the ecosystem. And so it is about those other devices and people are out there who are who've got a plug that can control something, or they've got a smart meter controller, or they've got a solar system that can plug into the internet, or whatever they've got, like other original equipment manufacturers who want to be part of this, we want to talk to them. So if people are watching it and they want to come and talk to us, we want to include you in the Internet of Energy. Like we are creating this, and it's going to be open source. That core fundamental protocol part, it's going to be open source, and we want people to come and jump in. And what that does is it adds capability from our side, from all the other signals we're getting in, or from people at the edge, and also from signals such as grid emissions factors and prices and all that kind of stuff that we're pulling in. And then we provide that kind of benefit to those device manufacturers who engage their customers in whatever way they want. We don't want to own all of those customers. In fact, we'd rather not. We'd rather those individual companies have those customers and delight the customers in whatever they do. But we want to provide that underpinning connectivity that enables them to get as much benefit from the whole ecosystem as possible, rather than everyone else trying to like create individual networks, because then we just end up with a mess. So if there are people out there who are watching this and want to be part of that kind of energy transition in a way through connecting devices, through APIs, we want to hear from you, because we're building this and people are jumping in and we're excited and we just want to do more. So I guess that's a little plug, and Simon will be happy now, because it is the way it's going to happen.
I know you want a bit of visuals, David. I actually have never seen this before, but I'll bring it up anyway. So I hope it's okay. One moment, share screen. Host disabled attendee screen sharing. That's okay. What I was going to show you was, I just found this brochure on our common drive, which is Mirvac's plan to reach net positive carbon by 2030. So it's a planet positive. So it's pretty interesting how we like to talk about the unusual suspects. So the usual suspects are people like energy companies, energy retailers that just rip you off. Sorry, energy retailers. And then there's people that you don't even think about. We're trying to push ourselves into who isn't involved in energy right now but could. And property development, you can see it, but it's not like the first line of defense. Like they're not energy people, but they're getting involved. So
they have people, they have real people who really love them as well. And that's what's really cool about this. There's a whole, as you said, there's unusual suspects. There's a whole bunch of organizations that want to make a difference. They're just not in energy, so they don't know how to do it. But they're the ones who are kind of saying, they're putting a line in the sand, like Mike said, we're going to be net zero by 2030. Fantastic. Let's get involved. And that's exciting, because it's not just this whole kind of like bang your head against a brick wall. It's really about companies that want to do something. So I'm excited about that.
There's a website which we haven't really engaged yet, but I'm kind of captivated. It's called millionjobs.org.au. So like every country in the world, we went through this COVID, and it's like a pause, like what are we doing? And of course, we're lucky in Australia that the government is helping out. They don't want to, they're right wing, but they're giving our money back to keep us all going. But what happens after this, after COVID? And it shouldn't be gas, it should be renewables. So millionjobs.org.au is a group of really quite important people. If you ever use Atlassian software, Mike Cannon-Brookes is part of it. So he's a billionaire in Australia that's part of it. One of our ex-prime ministers is involved. The woman who wrote the Paris Accord, she lives in, I think, Costa Rica or something. So this is an actual plan that takes everyone to renewables and creates 1 million jobs in the process. So that's why we talked earlier about there was oil, and now we're on this precipice. This is it. This is where we make the move.
And so that lady is 𝗔𝗯cie 𝗥𝗲𝗚𝗚, who is the former head of the UNFCCC, and she negotiated the Paris Accord. A very super strong figure in the climate world, and got Paris signed. I mean, that's a momentous achievement. But it's cool because it's 𝗔𝗯cie, it's Mike Cannon-Brookes, and we have the politicians in there as well. So it's kind of an interesting one to look at. I think the cool thing that's going to come from this is that RedGrid is a movement and a community, as well as the tech. And I think the communities are starting to galvanize. And one of the ones we did last year was with 2040, the film 2040 with 𝗔𝗯cie 𝗥𝗲𝗚𝗚, and it was brilliant, right? Because we partnered up because we are trying to bring that kind of what their vision was in the film to reality. And they saw it, we saw it, and it was this sort of, people want to see change, and what we love to see people do is we want people to just jump into what we're kind of thinking of doing and give things a go, and see what a new world could look like when you've lived in a COVID world and we're all stuck at home, and it's going to come back. It's going to be waves of this over the next few years. There's going to be lockdowns until we get a full vaccine for everybody. We're going to be spending more money on electricity. How do we start shifting our relationship to it and be part of a community that's consciously all together shifting things kilowatt hour by kilowatt hour towards the clean future? And if we do that all together as a community, it happens really well. And the cool thing about Holochain and the point system and everything that sits within Holochain that we're building on, it gives us that immutability of that action that's happened. And so it's been really hard. And this is what goes back all the way to what Art was talking about at the very beginning with the currency workshops that we did here in Melbourne, is that we've got these abilities to run to do the small changes in the tributaries, to use your trowels to change the way that the water flows. But if you don't know someone else is doing the change in the tributary and you're doing it, it's very hard to make that work. And so we get a kind of tragedy of the commons. But we can actually use this right now, and through the system and what we've got from the smallest plug in someone's house through to a massive institution, we can start to ledger and track that and enable people to make those decisions, or just hand it over and let the machines do it for them in the service of kind of humanity. And that, I don't know, that sounds a bit grand, but dude, that is it. Like, those people can then be part of this genuine shift, and it's going to happen.
What's cool also, I mean, what did it for me was Matthew 𝗔𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏𝗂. It was 2017 in Amsterdam, and the whole biological aspect. And one thing that we're working on is the node-to-node communication. So this is where it starts to aggregate up. So originally that diagram I showed you, it's not just a house, it's a street, it's a suburb, it's a state. And it's the aggregation that gets us where we want to go. That's like wild. That's emergent behavior stuff. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Very cool, guys. I've got some very loud tree maintenance going on in the background here.
Specifically timed for a recorded call.
Exactly.
Once a year.
I just live on this now. I'm on meetings all day, and there's this one guy, he's working from home, poor guy, and I don't know what's with this kid, but it's just like a banshee. He has to mute all the time. Anyway.
So I got a 8-month-old who I need to go and talk to in a second, but he's pretty chilled. And you've got a train set. That's awesome.
Yeah, we got the train set and the trampoline in there.
I just have a dog that steals things.
But it is, yeah. So Dave, what else can we help?
Super, guys. I think that's good for now. I actually can't hear myself think, as I don't think you can quite catch that there, but I think that's great for now. I think it sounds like firstly, it sounds incredibly exciting, and then I think it sounds like the sort of more commercial work that you're doing with microgrid, etc., work with Monash, the work with Mirvac on the domestic. Mike, as you showed that in original image, it sounds like what you're going to do over the next year is bring all of these things together. New applications, new use cases, proving out, and it also sounds like timing is coming together, doesn't it? The community's building, the need is growing, both from all angles, and I think, it's just it's just incredible, inspiring, exciting, and I think come back in three or 4 months and share the progress. I think people are going to be blown away.
We had a planning session yesterday, and I think, Adam, you're the one who said zeitgeist, and that's it, right? This is what it's all about. It's happening. It's all happening.
And absolutely. And it's the kind of the weight of climate change to deal with it. The climate change with the zeitgeist like 10 years ago, like, oh my God, this terrible problem. Now it's like, okay, we've realized the terrible problem. We've accepted there's a big problem. Now we're going to do something about it. And it feels like Mike pinged me after this meeting today with Monash. He's like, the room was vibrating, and it was like, okay, wow. We all suddenly see where this can go. And I think you're absolutely right. The next year is consolidating, bringing the residential and the kind of large part together, and more use cases, bringing in more customers, bringing in more other people who want to be part of the ecosystem. So integrating more technologies, and it's going to be this. We really feel in the next 3 months, at least into into next year, there's going to be this kind of consolidation of exactly what RedGrid is doing, and a bit more public facing on that as well. Because we've been pretty quiet for a while, but that's all just to get stuff done.
And I should point out, and also bringing in the Holochain community. So, like I said, this whole last few months with EM, Connor, and all the others, like, it's proving this is the way to go. And there's people hanging out to help us, which is great. So
actually, that's what. Thanks, Mike. That was the one thing I was going to jump in, but just leaving you guys with your flow is when you were talking about building together, because I think like one of the most special things, often I'll be on calls and just chatting with people across the blockchain or crypto ecosystem, and they talk a lot about community and developer mindshare and all of these kind of things. And the building together point, I'll double it up, because it's the combination of coding and architecting and building this infrastructure, as well as building relationship, community. And I think like it's the combination of the technical and social that is actually
100%.
attracting the people that you guys are benefiting from. And we're seeing that because the connection with all of those guys you've described has been built from those dimensions. And they're the foundations that have been laid. And that's why for me, it's fantastic to hear where you guys are at today, to think about the times where I first met you, Adam, to think about the fact that, we've effectively swapped countries.
Exactly.
And,
war stories,
exactly. And like living close to my sister-in-law and all sorts of things. Like the social fabric is becoming intertwined, and they are the foundations by which also we want these changes to be coming from, because it's a relational as well as technical foundation, and it's such a stronger fabric to bring these new technologies and new ways of working and collaborating into the world. So
can you imagine if this COVID hit in, let's say, 1995? We'd all be paying 5 cents for each text message. We'd be on dial-up. It just like what we're doing now. This is the way we live. It's remarkable.
But and what you're saying there, David, I couldn't agree with more. Like this is how new systems emerge.
Yep.
Like there's technology, but there's the social dynamics that support that are from people who we've only met face to face once, right? And as you said, Mike, now we can do this, but you're right. We've got these relationships, these fabrics of trust, of people that you trust and you work with. And it's like, that is how new systems emerge. And that's what gives me the most hope about this for the future.
Yep.
For where we are right now. This is going to happen in the next few years, because these fabrics are now so thick that they are just going to kind of overwhelm the kind of antiquated versions of the past, and really get something good happening.
We actually have a few employees in RedGrid I've never met, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that's a lovely way to finish it. Actually, David, you summed up perfectly. And I think if there's anything that we want people to take away from this, is that there's an ecosystem that's being built, and it's a social fabric and a technology. And if you put all those things together, we can create an amazing thing for the world together. And that's what we want to do.
Super. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. Adam's wrapped for us. Please replace me. Just get a RedGrid up and running, and then come and do this. You do a brilliant job.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Oh, mate, this is awesome. I love this. It's so good having you here, David. Like, it's the thing. It's like, it's also like we've all got these other like day jobs, and then it's kind of like, oh wow, now we're gonna do like this media stuff, and it's really fun, and it's really good. Thank you for having us. Like, and everyone's listening. Like, David, you've been here with us since the beginning as well, like supporting us, calls, strategy calls, business calls, commercial calls, all the way through. Like, I remember walking around Tilden talking to you on the phone in London, like, and just you've been so helpful. So it's just like, thank you, man. We really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. I look forward to the next 18 months.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you, everybody.